I call the final speaker in the open debate, Keith Brown.
Presiding Officer, it's worth noting that the Goldman Sachs latest report that the UK's GDP per head currently stands at only 4% above its 2016 level, compared to 8% for the Eurozone and 15% for the US, proving what everybody living in Scotland today knows, that the UK is the stagnation nation of the developed world. And just to address some of the points just made, it's worth pointing out on tax, of course, the Tories will not acknowledge that the majority of people in Scotland pay less tax than their counterparts in the rest of the UK. Now, they object to that. I think it's because those that pay less tax are the lower paid, and they'd like to turn that on its head, which we see in their proposals. Also, in terms of economic mismanagement, we've got the highest ever debt, £2.65 trillion under the Tories. We've got the highest tax burden. No, I've only got 4 minutes. We've got the highest tax burden we've had since the Second World War. That's what the Tories have done. Apart from putting us back into recession once again, and apart from having the massive debt that I've just mentioned, we've also got the highest tax burden. That's what the Tories do: tax and economic failure. But I have to say, I'm absolutely astounded by the brass neck of the Labour Party trying to blame this on the Scottish Government, not least when they know full well, even if not from this Government, then from their friends in the Labour-run Welsh Government, that much of these things are determined by what happens at Westminster. Mark Drakeford, the Welsh First Minister: "We are in this position because of the mismanagement of the economy and public finances by successive UK governments over the last 13 years, and because of unfunded commitments made by the UK Government." They know what Labour cannot admit here, that it's because of the policies of the UK Government, whether it's immigration, whether it's Brexit, and that's something they support now as well, or the failure to properly fund public services, that the UK is largely responsible for this. And they can't admit that. And for that reason, we can't take their debate seriously. It is not a serious attempt to discuss the economy in Scotland. It's superficial and it's spurious. There are no ideas. There's no willingness to acknowledge the wider context of the economic situation that we find ourselves in. And for Willie Rennie to talk about the independence referendum as being a brake on investment, he perhaps forgets that Ernst & Young reported in that year we had the sparkling, one of the best ever years of foreign direct investment in Scotland. That's on the record, and I don't know why he didn't want to acknowledge that. In fact, tries to turn it on its head by saying there was less. But it's patently the case that if we don't have the powers over corporation tax, over business regulations, immigration, trade, or the vast majority of welfare and taxpayers, how can any of the devolved governments be in any way responsible for those systemic issues that plague the UK economy? Indeed, I would argue that devolution is designed to keep it that way. For example, when the Scottish Government opts to differentiate income tax, HMRC is still responsible for collecting that tax and for all taxes set in Scotland. The block grant is then reduced, and it's no wonder that in the case, because if Scotland was to be fully or even marginally financially independent, even if it was within the UK, then the UK Government, the Labour Party, the Tory Party, would know that the game was up and the union would be over before you could say the words recession, which, of course, there were 5 periods, 5 quarters under the last Labour Government of recession. We haven't heard that mentioned today. And of course, we can't forget the immortal words of the last Chief Secretary to the Treasury under Gordon Brown. I know they enjoy this, so let me just repeat it. Under Labour, after 13 years in government, there is no money left. They started
Mr Brown.
They started the banking crisis, and they're going back to it. They want to lift bankers' bonus cap. They don't want to lift the 2-child cap or the rape clause. They want to look after the bankers and give them ever more money. So, and we of course know how they treat Scotland, the way they treated the Macron report in the mid-1970s. Hide Scotland's wealth from Scotland. That's the way to do it. And now what they propose to do is take more of Scotland's wealth to fund nuclear developments in England. The Labour Party is no friend to Scotland. It is no friend to the Scottish economy. It's proven time and time again it's lied to Scotland and it's failed Scotland, not least, as I say, by saying there is no money left. So let's not go back to the... we want to see more regional management of economies under the Labour Party. Look at Birmingham City Council, 20% increase in council tax, hundreds of redundancies. That's what Labour mismanagement does. We should have had a serious debate. We're not going to get from that in the Labour Party. The serious option for the Scottish economy is for independence, to give us the full powers that we require.
Thank you. We move to winding up.